proof is in the pudding. So, like I said before, you can argue with methods, you can't argue with results. The thing runs great. Runs absolutely great. Okay, so here's the cane Carburetor. Wow, cane Carburetor. What the heck am I talking about? Cane or Kine carburetor. So I've had this factory carburetor soaking in my parts cleaner overnight, and I've already scrubbed a lot of the major buildup that was on here. Loosened the bowl nut, and let's take a look in here. There's some buildup in there. So that's that fuel gelling and crystallizing and getting dislodged with fresh fuel. That's probably blocked this main jet here, or at least obstructed it pretty good. And there's a couple other small vents as well that could be clogged. But we're going to rebuild this entire carburetor with a brand new donor from Amazon. And this is just one of my little, if you want to call it, life hacks. It's not a hack job, trust me. I've done this maybe shy of 100, but I've never had any issues after rebuilding a carburetor with an Amazon carburetor. Because you're going to think, well, why don't you just take this sucker and throw it on the new one? What are you doing wasting the whole entire carburetor? Well, it's sad because rebuild kits for a carburetor for the OEM cost more than to buy an Amazon carburetor entirely. And even if I was to buy a rebuild kit for this through Amazon that's made by a vendor other than OEM or even OEM, it costs more. So guess what I do? I buy a whole entire carburetor. It's cheaper than the rebuild kit, and I use all the materials in here. Since it's brand new, the paper is reusable, every gasket's going to separate, nothing is going to tear apart on a brand new carburetor because the fuel has never been introduced to it, so it hasn't swollen, it hasn't been seated. So that's what we're going to do. They also give you all the new gaskets you need, which you're going to have to buy anyway. So it's a win-win plus win if you're up for the challenge. Take this brand new carburetor, instead of throwing it on here and giving it a half-life, we're going to take the guts out of this new carburetor off Amazon, and we're going to rebuild the factory one. And I'm telling you right now, your performance is not going to be compromised. When you put an aftermarket carburetor on Amazon, you are risking performance. It's just, it happens. I've seen it firsthand on some Kawasaki engines. I've seen it on some Kohler engines and Polaris. I've thrown an Amazon carburetor on them there just to get them going, or proof of concept if it's a fueling issue. And I'm telling you, the factory carburetors will run the best performance when they're rebuilt correctly. Aftermarket ones, they get you close. I've said it before as a joke, but I'm serious. Amazon carburetors are like ex-girlfriends. It seemed like a good idea to go back to, but they're not. I'm telling you. Just stick with the OEM. Alright? So what I'm going to do first is leave my brand new carb in the box. I'm going to go ahead and separate all of our components. See bowl gaskets coming off in pieces. Center jet we've got to take out. The jets, as long as they are not damaged in any way, are some things I try to reuse, because their machining for the jet port size itself is going to be more precise than your aftermarket applications. So I just still take it out. Essentially all I'm using the brand new donor carb for is going to be for gaskets, maybe some seals. Clean that out. I'll clean these ports out. And I've got this multi-kit here for cleaning jets or ports. It's nice, these are little cleaning needles. Clean the holes a little bit. See, that goes all the way down to the Welsh plug. If we took that out, you see that would be right through there. That's a machining port, where that port goes all the way through, and to these 4 holes back there at the tip of my little needle there. This was used to access, so that's all this is doing. Cleaning this up, clean And this port, this one, I don't see any issues with it, but we'll run it down here anyway. And that will come through. You'll see that come through inside. And we're just kind of going a little circular motion just to clean. You don't want to make any of these holes bigger. I mean, that hole there is oversized anyway because your jet actually controls the meter of the fuel. Got a big cross hole here. Nothing to worry about there. It's open and clear. Fuel holes, you know, those are good. This is where the needle seat is for your float. It's fine. Let's see what other holes I've got here. Just clean it a little bit. I'm just going to take an air tool, not crazy. We'll blow through and clean these holes. And then I'm going to go to my parts washer and clean up this old residue here from these old seals and a couple things that didn't come off in the parts wash. And I'll come back to you. One pretty important thing I almost forgot. I realized it when I was cleaning this. We've got the idle jet right here. Very important for doing exactly what it's named. Idle jet. Controls the ratios of fuel while she's in idle. And it's just another jet. Kind of what you would consider your low mixture screw. But it's not a screw and it's not adjustable. It's a fixed jet. This is made of plastic, so just be careful getting her out. So you just pop out of here. These have seals on them as well. Sometimes they're in there a little bit. There we go. So you see how there is a seal on the bottom. See how this one's kind of split and mushroomed here. So this one needs replaced. But all it is a big old controlled jet. I'm going to replace this seal with the one from the donor unit. I'm going to reuse this plastic. See, we've got one here as well on the new unit. Let me show you the difference right here, right now. See how easy that one came out. You see how this is the aftermarket carburetor? See how small that jet is? And here's the OEM. See how much larger this one is compared? Aftermarket stuff is not the same. I'm telling you right now, there's a major difference. So I will use these aftermarket carbs as a seal kit, as I've said a million times. So I'm going to take the O-rings off of this aftermarket and put them on my original factory jet, because that is what is going to be the best for performance. And you say, okay, well, Ty, you're not racing anything. I do agree. I'm not racing this. This is a pressure washer. But performance is everything. If you want things to last and run correctly and get the longest life you can out of your equipment. Something as simple as fueling, like this here, shows that the aftermarket application would be running leaner. Looks like less of a fuel. So I just look at this stuff. Even the ends are made differently. Got new ones on here in the proper place, and now she will be ready to rock, dude. See where that goes. Okay, take the factory one, and if we see it went through, I'm just gonna twist. Clean that a little bit. So now I will return it to its place. And this little screw here is a twofer. This is your idle adjustment. So you have to play with this a little bit once you put this back in. I say twofer because it holds idle jet in place as well as being your idle adjustment. See, holds it all in place. Okay, we got it pretty close. I just have it set right now to where it's not touching. So it'd be a good baseline to start up. If it seems too high off the get-go, just shut it off. We'll crank this down a little bit if you need to. So we got this little adjustment jet here. We're gonna take this out, clean behind here. And what I will do is, you see how it's barely sticking out? You don't want to over tighten these because you can damage their seating points and their mixture capabilities. That comes off there. See? Told you it'd come off. It's just freaking stuck on there. There's another flathead under here. I'm gonna count in my turns. Like I said, This isn't for everybody. That's why they sell Amazon carburetors. That way anybody can be a 5-minute mechanic. Going this deep, it's worth it if you're strong enough. So I'm gonna count my turns in until she stops. I'm oriented right here. So I'm gonna go half turn, one turn, 1.5, and 1.5, it stops. So we'll take this all the way out now. Let me show you where that's at. That needle is pretty much bottomed out at 1.5 turns. So this way I know where to set this when I'm done. So I just take this all the way out. I'd have no clue how many turns I gotta be. You say, oh, I can count my turns on the way out. Based on how you get that thing started back in there, you're gonna be off. I know bottomed out, I'm 1.5 turns. See, there's that needle, a little bit of crud around here. Port. It goes into there. I clean that out a little bit, and that's that same cavity that runs all the way down through the idle jet and everything. So I'm just going to blow back through it and put this back in here, making sure there's no debris. Clean this up a little bit with just a little bitty soft wire brush. I didn't use a steel brush, I had some plastic ones just to get a little debris off of this. And we're all good to go back in now. Bottomed out right there. So we're 1.5 turns is where this was set. So half turn, 1 and half. And this is what most refer to as an altitude adjustment. Finally, adjust your fuel mixture for higher and lower altitudes. The higher you go, there's less oxygen, you run a leaner mix. Closer to ocean level you go, the more rich your mixture needs to become. So we do have a little flat spot in here, but that's going to line up back with this slot here. Right there. So this was somewhere in the middle, we'll just leave her there. Done. Now I'm going to clean up my final promise in here. Little brushes come in handy. See how clean that is in there? Isn't that just gorgeous? Yeah, I know it is. So the reason I'm resealing this, these Welsh plugs, they go in, you see how you've got a smaller circle in here? These are set with a punch. So when you pop them in the middle, they wedge out and they're supposed to seal with a little bit of epoxy or so. Some of them are coated to begin with, that way they seal upon expansion. But it's never a bad idea to clean these, because if you get a leak around here, you have a vacuum issue, which will affect your fueling issue. And yes, I'm scratching myself with a wire brush because it feels good. Let me put this back here. And I'll shake up a little bit of black. You can use any color you want to, literally just fingernail polish. Just always keep this in your toolbox. It has effective purpose for here, or if you're having a day you feel being like a little goth, then there you go. Shook up enough. Just gonna drop a little bit down in here. See, just like that. I don't mind the extra. It's free. Just let that dry. And just so you know, there is no gas anywhere. This thing's been blown out. Don't even smell like gas in here anymore. So this is a little torch. Just gonna try to heat cure a little bitty bit. Okay, and then when you start seeing white spots, that's when it's a good time to stop blowing and breathe normal for a few moments, because right now it looks like a flight scene in Star Wars. We're back. I think. Lose my train of thought. That looks bad in here. Let's good to me, guys. Oftentimes, these are newer. These are plastic. They used to make some carburetors that had brass floats, and they were soldered together, and sometimes they would fail or they would corrode, and the floats would fail because they wouldn't become buoyant anymore. Once they filled with fuel, it would stay down all the time and the carburetors would flood. The newer plastic ones, I usually don't have any issues at them. They are a two-piece. You look at them, they are plasti welded essentially around here, but I don't see many of these fail. And sometimes the angles of these floats at rest and when they're full and the stops are different than aftermarket. So if the original one is fine, I will keep it. I will use the original one because the fuel action is going to be the same as factory intended. Fuel stopper needle, there's no grooves or flat spots on this one. It's actually pretty good, so we're going to reuse this as well. You can tell the construction of the aftermarket one. And here's the new one. So we've got a bigger gap on the original. That's a shorter shutoff. And you look at a couple other things. You see the little stops? They look similar, but this one looks shorter. So I'm just saying, it's the little things that make a difference. I keep feeling like this is falling on deaf ears because some folks think that small engines are insignificant and there's not a whole lot worth to them. There's not a whole lot of money to be made in them. But the fact is, all of us use a small engine of some sort. I mean, most of us. I'm going to generalize and say most of us use a small engine in our life. Although they're small, they're important. It's the things we need. And when you start buying cheap parts for something that you use a lot and you rely on, you're going to be disappointed. And you'll think, oh, that's a junky thing, this, whatever. And truth is, well, did you put fuel stabilizer in the winter? Do you change the oil? Do you service it regularly? Is the machine truly poor, or is it just receive poor maintenance from its owner? That's what it is. Nobody takes care of their things like they used to. So here we are. It's okay because I enjoy doing this type of work. All engines, whether it's 2-cycle or it's pressure washers, Hondas, Subarus, Kawasaki, Kohlers, Honda. I think I already said Honda once, Briggs. But it's important. The little things matter. And they matter to somebody out there too. Little job done well makes a big difference. I could just as well be sitting here working on a Caterpillar engine or a Cummins engine or a big block out of a Chevrolet. It doesn't really matter. You do things the right way and they make a difference. Don't mind my rant. I talk for myself sometimes, I swear. I don't have anybody to talk to anymore since I work for myself, so you are my captive audience. Only captive as long as you're logged in and listening and watching, but listening nonetheless. And I appreciate that. Thank you. Hope that I don't just sound like a rambling madman. And my kids will appreciate this one day. They'll be able to maybe hop back on, watch some videos, or learn straight from Dad. They can do whatever they want to with their life. I just enjoy this. I'm just making sure that the new O-ring is sitting in there pretty nice, and she is. Here's our jet, the one that we're reusing because I trust factory over OEM. No, too big. So we'll keep this one. Just like that. And back in she goes. And these get seated all the way down. There's no adjustment on these. Go in until she stops. Back in place. Reinstall our float. There we go. The bowls are the same seating diameter. They are the same depth. Pretty much identical. This is the one thing you can get pretty close to factory on, is these bowls. The insides are made the same. And there's no relief made into here for the float action, so putting these in here at any orientation is going to be fine. You can clock them in almost any direction you want to. I'm going to use the new one. It's because the old one is just pretty gummy and gelled up in there. I could clean it, but this is the one thing I will reuse from the new carburetor. And it already has new seal. We'll use the new ones on here. Put this where she needs to go. and I'm going to kind of just look at the machine. I know that it sits on a machine like this. Looking at it right here, this pressure washer, so I want this to be clocked just off to the left. That way when we get all of our breather assemblies on here, if we need to ever come back at any point and drain fuel, we can then drain the fuel from here. Okay, that works out good. Here's the old one. One of those things I will use from the new one. I know it seems silly, guys, to do this. And for the amount of time involved, it's worth the cost savings to me. Because if I wasn't explaining this, it'd be a lot faster. But when you can get a whole new Amazon carburetor for under 30 bucks, and rebuild kits cost about 70 at the minimum, taking a few minutes to disassemble and use parts, it's not that bad of a gig. It's really not. It's pretty good bang for your buck. Okay, so it's tightened on here. Now I've got the sediment bowl. It's back on. It's sealed. Go ahead and do my little blow test here. That's on. Should be off. Yep, float's working good. Return back to open. Make sure nothing sticks. You can hear it's working. So our carburetor is back together now. So the only thing I'm going to take, this whole kit here you can get comes with a free junky spark plug that I will not be using because I put an NGK in there. Fuel line that's worthless. Different intake pieces for this. I mean, it comes with a whole new piece on here, but this is crap. I mean, this one's not cracked, and this one lacks some of the markings that this one has, so this goes back in the box. Paper gaskets for our sealing surfaces. It's great. You can use these. I'm going to. Fuel filter. There's nowhere to put it on here really, but there is one built into the fuel tank on these already, so you can keep this on your shelf for something down the road that you're not real fond of. So here is the factory choke. Here's the aftermarket choke. The aftermarket one's a little bit chintzy. It's a little bit smaller. You can feel it's lighter. The actual mechanism is fatter on the factory, and the aftermarket one's skinny. You see that or not? How much skinnier this one is? This one just made better. Yeah, it's ugly, but guess what? It's made better, and we're using it. I can clean it up a little bit so it's not so ugly, I guess. I cleaned it up for you a little bit. Are you happy now? Yes, I am. Okay, back in there we go. That's it. I've already cleaned all that surface up over here. Get this stupid fuel line back on, we'd be in business. Alright. Our linkages are hooked back up. Choke's good. While I'm doing this, I'm turning the fuel on, make sure I don't have any active leaks. And if I do, I know I gotta stop and fix something. But right there where she belongs. Alright, so here we are. Get it off the bench, get it outside, and see if she's gonna run okay. Here we go. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you. God bless and have a good day. We'll see you on the next one, all right?